I parked my worn-out Honda Civic around the corner from my sister Catherine's mansion, making sure it wasn't visible from her perfectly manicured driveway. The car had been my home for the past 8 months, though my family didn't know that. They thought I was just another failed startup founder, too proud to admit defeat and come crawling back. The irony of living in my car while secretly owning the luxury properties my family lived in wasn't lost on me. My phone buzzed. Another email from the property management company I'd set up to handle my real estate empire. Catherine was 3 days late on her rent. Sarah, my sister's voice carried across her vast front lawn as she spotted me from her balcony. I thought I made it clear you weren't welcome here anymore. I stepped out of my car, straightening my simple black dress. Bought from a thrift store but carefully maintained. Just checking if you got my messages about Mom and Dad's anniversary dinner. Catherine laughed, the sound dripping with condescension. Oh, you're still planning to come to that? In what, that pathetic excuse for a car? Haven't you embarrassed the family enough? I glanced at my Civic. It might look shabby, but it had been my sanctuary, my office, and my home while I built something none of them could imagine. Someone needs to plan it, I replied calmly. Since you're too busy enjoying your lifestyle. She gestured expansively at her mansion. This is what success looks like, Sarah. Maybe if you'd listened to Dad and taken that banking job instead of chasing your ridiculous real estate dreams, you wouldn't be living like a vagrant. If only she knew that her success was an illusion. The mansion she was so proud of, owned by Aurora Properties, one of my shell companies. The rent she kept paying late, going straight into my accounts. But let me back up. You need to understand how we got here. 3 years ago, I was the responsible daughter. I had the prestigious degree, the corporate job, and the future all mapped out according to my family's expectations. Then I noticed something during my work in investment banking, a pattern in the luxury real estate market that nobody else seemed to see. I brought my findings to my father first. Dad, look at these numbers. High-end properties are being undervalued in key areas. With the right strategy. Not now, Sarah. He cut me off, barely looking up from his phone. Catherine's husband just made partner at his law firm. We're celebrating tonight. That was always the way. Catherine married right, lived right, did everything according to the family playbook. Meanwhile, my insights, my potential might as well have been invisible. I tried again at the celebration dinner, this time addressing the whole family. I found a way to build a real estate portfolio with minimal initial investment. If we pool our resources. Oh, honey, my mother interrupted, patting my hand condescendingly. Leave the real estate to the professionals. Focus on your banking career. That's what we spent all that money on your education for. Catherine smirked from across the table. Not everyone can marry into success like me, Mom. Some people need to learn their limitations. That night I made a decision. I didn't need their support. I had my analysis, my savings, and most importantly, my conviction. I quit my banking job the next day. You're throwing your life away, my father raged when I told them. No daughter of mine is going to live like some common property speculator. Then maybe I shouldn't be your daughter anymore, I replied. They cut me off completely. No family support, no connections, no safety net. Catherine took particular pleasure in announcing my failure to all her social circles. What they didn't know was that I'd already set my plan in motion. I had discovered that luxury properties in certain areas were being systematically undervalued due to a flaw in how they were being appraised. By creating a complex algorithm that identified these properties and using my banking knowledge to structure creative financing, I could acquire them for far less than their true worth. The catch. I needed to work fast and in complete secrecy. If anyone caught on to what I was doing, the opportunity would vanish. So I sold everything I owned, emptied my savings, and took out loans against my future earnings. For 8 months, I lived in my car, working from coffee shops and library computers, building my empire piece by piece. Aurora Properties was just one of my companies. I had 5 others, each specializing in different aspects of the luxury real estate market. While my family thought I was failing, I was quietly becoming one of the largest property owners in the city. The first sweet taste of revenge came 6 months ago when Catherine's dream mansion went on the market. She and her husband Brian were desperate to buy it, but the asking price was just out of their reach. Through a series of carefully structured shell companies, I bought the property for 20% below market value. Then I had my management company offer it to Catherine for lease. At a premium rate, of course. She jumped at the chance, never suspecting that her failed sister was her new landlord. One by one, I acquired properties in all the prestigious neighborhoods where my family and their social circle lived. Most of them became my tenants, including my parents, who downsized to a luxury condo owned by another of my companies. Their rent payments funded my next acquisitions. Every snide remark about my career choices, every smirking comment about living in my car, just fueled my determination to expand my holdings. Now, standing in front of Catherine's mansion, my mansion, I watched her preen on her balcony, secure in her imagined superiority. "Get a real job," she called down. "You're embarrassing yourself living like this." I checked my phone. Another notification from my property manager. Catherine's check had bounced. Time to set the next phase of my plan in motion. "You're right," I called back. "Things are about to change." He had no idea how right I was. Because tomorrow, every member of my family would receive a very interesting letter from their landlord's attorney. I got back in my car, smiling as I looked at the mansion in my rearview mirror. They thought I was living in my car because I had to. Truth was, I chose to live simply while building something extraordinary. And now it was time to show them exactly what their failed daughter had become. The next morning, I parked across the street from my parents' luxury condo building, watching as the courier delivered the certified letters to each of my family members' homes. Each envelope contained the same message. Due to consistent late payments and bounced checks, Aurora Properties was initiating a thorough audit of all tenant finances. My phone started ringing almost immediately. "Sarah." Catherine's voice was shrill with panic. "I need you to come over right now. Something horrible is happening." I smiled, starting my car. On my way. When I arrived, the scene was exactly as I'd imagined. Catherine was pacing her marble foyer, designer heels clicking frantically against the floor. Her husband Brian sat on their imported Italian sofa, face pale as he read through the legal documents. My parents had already arrived, looking equally distressed. "Can you believe this?" Catherine thrust the letter at me. "Some company we've never heard of is threatening to audit us. They can't do this, can they?" I took the letter, pretending to read it carefully. "Aurora Properties. Isn't that your landlord?" "Yes, but we've never even met them. Everything goes through their management company." She ran her fingers through her perfectly styled hair. "Brian says they have the right to do this because of a clause in our lease." 3 bounced checks in 6 months, Brian muttered. "We thought we had more time." My mother wrung her hands. "We got the same letter at our condo. Your father's investments haven't been performing well, and with the lifestyle we need to maintain." I sat down, crossing my legs calmly. "So you're all having trouble paying rent?" "Don't say it like that," Catherine snapped. "We're not some common tenants. Do you know who we are in this city? Our social standing." "Your social standing won't pay the rent," I observed. My father stood up, straightening his expensive suit. "I'll handle this. I'll call in some favors, find out who owns Aurora Properties. We can reach an understanding, businessman to businessman." "Good luck with that," I said softly. Catherine's eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," I stood up, walking to the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the manicured grounds, "that Aurora Properties is just one of 6 companies owned by Summit Holdings Group." Brian's head snapped up. "How do you know that?" I turned to face my family, feeling the weight of 3 years of dismissal, mockery, and condescension lifting from my shoulders. "Because I own Summit Holdings Group." The silence that followed was deafening. Catherine laughed nervously. "That's impossible. You live in your car." "No," I corrected her. "I choose to work from my car. There's a difference. Would you like to see proof?" I pulled out my phone, opening my private banking app. The one that showed all my holdings, all my properties, all my companies. I placed it on the coffee table. My father grabbed it first, his face going ashen as he scrolled through the numbers. Millions in assets. Hundreds of properties. His hands started shaking. "This is some kind of trick," Catherine insisted, but her voice wavered. "The only trick," I said calmly, "was letting you all think I was a failure while I built an empire right under your noses. Every rent check you wrote, every late payment, every bounced check. All of it came to me." Brian stood up, lawyer mode engaging. "You deliberately deceived us." "No," I cut him off. I built a successful business. The fact that you were too busy mocking me to notice is your own fault." My mother started crying. "But why live like that? Why let us think you were struggling? Because you needed to learn something." I walked over to Catherine. "All those times you looked down at me from this balcony telling me to get a real job? I owned the balcony. I owned all of it. What do you want?" my father finally asked. "Money? Recognition?" I laughed. "I have more money than all of you combined. What I want is for you to understand what real success looks like. It's not about showing off wealth or maintaining social standing. It's about building something meaningful." Catherine sank onto the sofa. "So what happens now? Are you going to evict us?" "That depends." I picked up a stack of papers from my bag. "I have new lease agreements here. Standard terms, fair market rent. But there are conditions." "What conditions?" Brian asked warily. "First, you all start paying on time. No more excuses, no more bounce checks. Second, you learn some humility. No more looking down on people who appear to be struggling. You never know who might actually own your home." My father stepped forward. "Sarah, be reasonable. We're family." "Family?" I turned to him. "Was it family when you cut me off? When you all laughed at my ridiculous real estate dreams? When you watched me supposedly living in my car and did nothing?" They had no answer for that. "Sign the new leases now or face eviction proceedings starting tomorrow morning." I placed the papers on the table. "Your choice." One by one they signed. Catherine's hand trembled so badly she could barely write her name. "Oh, and one more thing," I added as I collected the signed documents. "The next time you see someone living in their car, remember this moment. Remember that success doesn't always look the way you think it should." I walked to the door, then paused. "The annual Tenant Appreciation Gala is next month. As your landlord, I expect you all to attend. Black tie, of course." "You're going to humiliate us publicly?" Catherine whispered. "No," I smiled. "I'm going to teach you what real class looks like. Sometimes it drives a Honda Civic." The next few weeks were interesting. My family tried everything: guilt, anger, manipulation, to regain the upper hand. But they couldn't argue with the reality of their situation. They were my tenants and they had to play by my rules. The gala was exactly as I planned. I arrived in my Civic, dressed in an elegant but simple gown. My family huddled in a corner, watching nervously as I took the stage. "3 years ago," I began, "someone told me I would never succeed without my family's support. They were right, but not in the way they thought. Their lack of support pushed me to succeed beyond anything they could imagine." I saw Catherine wince, remembering her own words thrown back at her. Today, Summit Holdings Group owns over 500 luxury properties in 3 states. We're expanding internationally next year. And yes, some of you might be surprised to learn that your landlord has been living in her car while building this company. The crowd murmured, looking at my family with new understanding. But success isn't about where you sleep. It's about what you build while others are sleeping. Thank you all for being part of our journey. Afterward, my father approached me. "I was wrong," he said quietly. "We all were." "Yes," I agreed. "You were. Can we start over?" I considered his request. "That depends. Can you accept that your daughter who lives in her car is actually a better businessperson than all of you combined?" He nodded slowly, humbled at last. "Then yes, we can start over. But on my terms, not yours." The next day I finally moved out of my car. Not because I had to, but because I'd accomplished what I set out to do. I'd built an empire while they weren't looking, and I'd taught them the lesson they desperately needed to learn. I bought a penthouse in one of my buildings. Nothing flashy, but comfortable. Catherine and Brian still live in their mansion, but now they pay their rent on time. My parents downsized to a smaller condo, finally learning to live within their means. Me. I still drive my Honda Civic. Not because I have to, but because it reminds me of where I came from and what I built. Sometimes I park it in front of Catherine's mansion just to watch her squirm. Success, I've learned, isn't about showing off what you have. It's about knowing what you're worth, even when others don't see it. And sometimes the best revenge isn't living well. It's living simply while secretly owning everyone else's luxury. Last week, Catherine called me. "I saw someone living in their car outside my office," she said. I bought them lunch and gave them my card. They're actually working on an interesting business plan." I smiled. Maybe some lessons do sink in after all. Good, I told her. Just remember, they might be your landlord someday. 1 year after the gala, I sat in my office reviewing expansion plans when my assistant buzzed me. Your sister's here to see you, she said. She says it's important. Catherine walked in, looking different from the entitled woman who used to mock me from her balcony. The designer labels were gone, replaced by simple, professional attire. I've been thinking, she said, sitting down across from me, about everything you built, how you did it all from your car while we were living in luxury. I waited, curious where this was going. I want to learn, she continued. Not for the money or status, but because you showed me what real success looks like. Would you consider mentoring me? I studied her carefully. It won't be easy. No shortcuts, no family connections, no privileged shortcuts. I know, she nodded. I'm ready to earn it. And surprisingly, she was. Over the next few months, I watched my sister transform. She started at the bottom, learning property management from the ground up. She worked long hours, dealt with difficult tenants, and never once complained about the modest salary I paid her. My parents took longer to change. Dad still struggled with the idea that his failed daughter had surpassed him. But even he eventually came around, especially after I helped him restructure his finances and find a more sustainable way of living. The family dynamic shifted completely. Holiday dinners were no longer about showing off wealth or status. Instead, we talked about business strategies, market trends, and the importance of living below your means. I kept my Honda Civic, turning down Catherine's repeated offers to buy me a car more suitable for a CEO. It became a symbol of sorts, a reminder that appearance and reality don't always match. You know what the best part is? I asked Catherine one evening as we reviewed property portfolios. Not the money or the properties. What then? The fact that success let me redefine our family's values. We're better people now than when we were just trying to look successful. She nodded, understanding at last what I'd been teaching them all along. Sometimes the biggest luxury isn't what you own. It's the wisdom to know what really matters. And my family? They finally learned that lesson, one rent check at a time.